Well, guys, things are in motion for the season finale, and there's absolutely no telling what is going to happen next week. Hey guys, camera for the Americans, Season 4, Episode 12, a Roy Rogers in Franconia, and holy shit, one episode. I mean, look, this was mainly a place-setting episode, it really was, but it was far from your typical place-setting episode, because we're not just setting up the season finale in this episode, we're setting up what I think is going to be the rest of the show. I mean, we have 2 seasons left, there's really no telling what could happen next week, like I said, and so much is happening in this episode, and so many reveals are finally coming into play, and so many things that we've known were inevitably going to happen, we didn't want to happen, are finally happening, and it really seems like things are not going to end well next week. We'll have to see where that goes, though. But let's just get into this episode, which mainly was Paige-centric, which I love, because that by far has been, I think, one of the best arcs this entire season. Is, you know, does Paige really agree with her parents are doing, that sort of thing? How much does this play into what she wants to do? Can she have her own life? You know, that's a big part of this episode. But let's just get into this episode. There's a lot to talk about. I really love the way the episode starts, though, because we start off with Phillip. He's at home playing video games with Henry, and again, I've said it before, any scene with Henry is so innocent because that is what Henry sees it as. He sees them as a normal family, and they're anything but normal. But just seeing Phillip for a moment, getting to have some nice quality time with Henry, I really do like seeing, because these two never get to have, you know, some normal, you know, Henry's the only person that gets to have somewhat of a normal life, and, you know, Phillip, you know, you can see is really enjoying that. I definitely did like seeing that, and again, just little scenes like that, it really just show how great this show does in showing how this family is not anything but normal. It never feels in your face either, it just feels very natural, you know, because, of course, their son, he doesn't know anything. I'm sure he's going to find out at some point, and if anything, I feel like Paige is going to be the one to tell him. I don't really know when, but I feel like Henry is going to find out very soon, and we'll see what happens with that. But right away we see Elizabeth Paige return home. They don't even give us a minute to really, you know, see this scene, because right away they return home and they're completely disheveled. You know, Henry can tell that something is up. Elizabeth's stuttering, says that they were almost mugged, and they yelled and the guys ran off. Now obviously we know that there was a lot more going on than that. We know that definitely what actually happened and things like that, but obviously again they need to try to be very low-key because of Henry and, you know, who's there and everything. So you can tell that definitely there's more going on. Henry, I think, knows that there's something going on, but I think that was a very well done scene. Really love the way that was done. And Paige then runs to her bedroom. Her parents follow her because she's very upset, and because she didn't know, of course, what Elizabeth was capable of. I said this before last week, that they weren't telling her what she wanted to know, and now she's found out in the worst possible way. But now there really is no holding back. They now need to deal with the damage. She now knows what they do, and everything they tried to keep her hidden from before, they can't do that anymore. Now they need to tell her what's going on. Now they need to treat her equally, and they can't keep this shield over her anymore. Now I understand. I think it's a very good example of how parents want to protect their children and want to keep their children shielded. But it's better to make your children aware of situations than, I think, to completely shield them of them. Because if you shield them, then they'll never know what's going on, and if they do run into a situation, they won't know what to do. So it's better to keep them aware of the situation than to, you know, to not do anything, which I think this episode very well shows, that it is better to make them aware of it. And it's something that Paige, I think, really did want. She did want to become aware, and if, you know, Elizabeth would have told her, Paige would have been ready for it. But basically Elizabeth explains to Phillip that one of the guys had a knife and she had to defend them, and Paige is saying that the guy's dead, and that's really what is scaring her. The fact that her mother is capable of killing someone, she never really thought of that before, and it's not really something she can necessarily comprehend. And of course, to Elizabeth and Phillip, this is normal. They kill all the time. Now we know that Phillip hasn't really killed in a while. He hasn't wanted to kill, especially since Martha's death. He's been very careful about that. But Elizabeth, we know she is ready to kill almost always. You know, especially with a situation like this, she will always put her daughter's safety over everyone else. And she explains to Phillip that one of the guys had a knife, she had to defend them. Now, Paige wants to call the police. Now, obviously, she is thinking very irrationally here, but that would be the logical thing to do, is to call the police. And her parents tell her that's not an option, because if they find out what's going on, I mean, they could go to jail, she could go to jail, really a bevy of things could happen, none of which are good, and they don't want to draw any unnecessary attention to themselves. And Paige moans that she feels sick. She sits down in her bed, and I love the way this scene was done because it very much reminded me of when Paige first found out that her parents, were KGB. Remember, she didn't want to, she didn't want to do anything. She wanted to lie down. She didn't know how to handle it. And it feels like a very realistic, reaction. I mean, yeah, she knew her parents were KGB, but that's literally all she knew. She didn't know what they were capable of. She didn't know what they were doing. And again, it feels like her whole life has just been unraveled from her. Everything she thought she knew is different now, and especially because I think she's thinking, holy shit, I'm gonna have to do this, I'm not prepared for that. I really think that is what Paige is really thinking in this situation, that she's gonna one day have to do the same thing. She's not prepared for that. She doesn't want to do that, which I don't blame her for. I mean, who wants to kill someone? No one really wants to kill someone, but she's realizing that she might have to do that, and I think it was very sad to see. And really, Holly Taylor, again, in this episode, she just killed it here. So Phillip gets to slip out for a meeting. He promises that he'll come right back. Paige continues to question her mom about stabbing the mother because she's far from over, obviously. She has many questions, and this is something I love, is that Paige's questions, they all are, reasonable questions. She's never asking unnecessary questions, because I feel like in other shows that aren't the Americans, they would portray this as the kids being really annoying and really needy. Paige does not come across that way at all. What she comes across is as someone that just wants answers, because obviously she has this new information. She doesn't really know where to go with it from there. She's trying to justify what her parents are doing, but it's hard for her to do that. I mean, especially because she's been taught that that's wrong to just kill. And Elizabeth explains that she was trained to defend herself when she was young, and Paige doesn't understand how her mom can be so calm about taking someone's life. But of course, to Elizabeth, that's very normal. And she confessed to Paige that this isn't the first time that she's killed someone to protect herself. She's done it many times, and she's completely used to it. That is something that Elizabeth has done all throughout her life, and it's not something that is really much of a big deal to her, because she does that all the time. And again, you can tell that Paige doesn't fully understand that. She can't really comprehend that, and I really did like seeing that. I like that Paige can't really fully understand what's going on there. Thought it was a very well done scene, and like I said, the majority of this episode really is focused on that. But of course, we also need to focus on this whole situation going on with the disease, because obviously that needs to get in motion for next week, because we know that is mainly what Phillip and Elizabeth are going to be dealing with next week, is about this disease, how are they going to handle it. We see Phillip meets with William at the park, and he gives him the codes that they stole from Don's office for the biological warfare. Now, that's basically why they need it. They need to get the codes, basically. And William warns Phillip that how bad Lassar fever is, which is even worse than glanders, the disease that they are currently working on. It basically liquefies all your organs. The way that William described it, I think, was terrifying. He says that, liquefies all your organs. Basically, you're, like, stripped of... It's just crazy. I don't know if it's an actual disease, but holy shit if it is. I mean, William tells Phillip that he can't do this one, that, that Phillip is not the right person to do this, that he will do this on his own. Phillip should not get involved. It's one of the deadliest pathogens on the planet, and William doesn't want it to get out there, because he's really worried. Of course, we know what happened last time. When they tried to stop the glanders, we know Gabriel got exposed to it, and then Elizabeth almost died, and this one's even worse. This one completely liquefies your body. I mean, it's not better. It's much worse than the other disease they had, in the first half of this season. So I do like seeing that. I like that William doesn't really want him to get involved, but Phillip knows he needs to get involved. He knows regardless that these two, they need to get involved. They've been given this mission. They need to complete it. They can't really say no. They can't really say no. They kind of have to go on with it, and that's something I really do like, is that Phillip really is just going to do what he thinks is best. That if he wants to continue this mission, he's absolutely going to continue with the mission, and I totally understand that. So, it's sad, obviously, because you don't really know what's going to happen there, but obviously, I will say I don't see things going well for William next week, especially because in the promo we see him in the hospital, so I don't see things really going well for William, but either way, they're definitely going to tackle this disease, no matter how bad it is. So Oleg runs into Tatiana, and things get a lot more interesting here. I really did like the situation that they were facing and where the direction that this is headed. She tells him that the center is very pleased with the work that she's been doing, and that they have promoted her to residence in Nariobi. I guess it's a place in Russia, I'm assuming. I don't really know. But she can choose who will work under her as a deputy, and she offers the job to him, and he promises to think about it. But of course, Oleg really has his hands tied right now, because he's working with Stan, as we know. That's still going on in this episode. Him and Stan, they are working on something, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but the biggest situation here is that I think while he wants to go with Tatiana, he knows that there are other things that he needs to deal with. He's working with Stan, he's doing other things, and I don't really know if he's going to be able to go with Tatiana. And it's sad because for a moment, I think Oleg's had this happiness that he's with Tatiana, everything's good in his life. He's having sex with her, he's seemingly forgotten about Nina. Like, the name Nina hasn't really even come up that much, which is surprising because we know how much he loved Nina. But Tatiana's kind of made him forget about Nina, and I feel like those memories of Nina are going to come back to haunt him. I really do see that happening, and I don't really see things going well for Oleg, I have to say. Definitely, I like the direction they're taking him in this episode, but very interesting way that that's going. So Phil returns home. Paige is finally asleep, thank God. I mean, I think really that's the best thing for her to do is to sleep this off. And he sits down with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth tells Phil that before they were mugged, Paige was telling her about her conversation with Matthew about what happened at her dad's office with Martha. And she's shocked that Paige had so much info about the spy at the FBI because she didn't realize, that Paige got this information. And, Paige accumulated so many details from that one conversation that they don't really know what to do there. So basically, this is a situation that they need to deal with. The fact that she has all this information, what's she gonna do with it? They also, I don't think, fully trust her. And Paige even says at the end of this episode, I'll talk about it, but she says, "Do you trust me?" And in many ways, you can understand why. I mean, she's the entire reason why Pastor Tim and Alice have had to get involved. Now, it's not necessarily Paige's fault. She really did not think that through. I think she knew she was wrong, but, she's just a kid. There's really nothing she could do about it. She needed to talk to someone about it. Pastor Tim was a person she felt close to. She couldn't talk to her parents about it. She had to talk to Pastor Tim about it, and that's what she got them involved, which basically set the conflict for this season. And now things are even worse because they're worried that she might be getting, information from Matthew and that she might be telling him things, which is very interesting, and I really like the direction that that's going. So the FBI, things get crazy in this episode because, as I said, Stan and Adderholt are slowly starting to learn things that we've seen before, but they're slowly starting to catch up to where the KGB is, which is scary because the fact that Stan knows about these details and he's going to end up connecting stuff. We know that Stan's incredibly smart, and I feel like Stan is very slowly going to start to find out that his neighbors, aren't just his neighbors, that they are KGB. I don't think that's going to happen yet, but it definitely is coming up soon. We see Stan, Adderholt, and their new boss are freaking out, which I forgot to say, their new boss is with the same guy that played Snyder in Colony. He's just as, not menacing, but powerful, and, what's the word? Intimidating? Yeah, that's the word. Powerful and intimidating here. But they're all freaking out because they realize that Martha wasn't the only leak at their office, and they find a drop in the mailroom where they're losing high security info. And they are sick of busting KGB spies and having to take them to the Russia embassy where they get immunity, and Adderholt thinks that they should just shoot whoever shows up at the drop. That might be the best thing to do because they really don't know how to handle this situation anymore. The fact that it seems like the KGB is always ahead of them, which, yeah, they are. The KGB always, we've known, outsmarts. I mean, think back last year with that attack on Gad in Season 3. I mean, that's a perfect example of that. And, of course, they don't know what happened to Gad. They still feel that it's KGB that's responsible for that, and I think that's really interesting. So, really, they're just thinking, okay, maybe we just need to kill him. Maybe that might be the best thing to do. So, really interesting, and I like how ruthless they're becoming there. So, basically, I think that was a very interesting situation that they were faced with. I really did like the way that was done. But basically, we then see the next morning, Paige is still upset about, her mother killing the mugger, and Elizabeth sits down with her basically to try to have a talk with her, try to get her to understand why she had to do this, and Paige demands to know what her job is really like, because this is the one thing that Paige has really known. Again, I feel this is a very reasonable question. That is the only thing that Paige has asked them all year, is what do you actually do? What is your job actually capable of? And Elizabeth explains that she and Phillip are serving their country. She tells Paige about where she grew up and how the city was destroyed during World War II, and I was like, alright, finally, you're finally telling her these things. But I think Elizabeth knows that they don't have a choice. They need to now tell her what's going on. Now that she knows that they're killed, there's really no holding back. They just need to tell her everything, because if not, they're gonna end up losing her, and they really don't want to do that, obviously. So basically, she tries to keep it as detailed as possible, but she also doesn't hide things. She talks about how their city was destroyed and where she grew up and how things were and how her parents were and things like that. I really did like that scene, thought that was really good. It was a long time coming, and I'm very glad that they finally have told Paige what's going on. Because like I said, it's the one thing that she's wanted. Out of everything this season, that is the one thing that Paige has wanted. She's wanted information. She's finally gotten that information she seeks, and I'm very happy about that. So back at the FBI, they catch an elderly woman at the office changing the recorder for the Russians, and she explains that she met a guy at a Roy Rogers concert, which is where this episode comes into play. Which I love the way the Americans just take small little quotes in the episode, or just small little references, and then compare them to what's going on here. Basically, she thought that this guy was in the mafia. She had no idea that she was working for the Russians, and that basically is what was going on, that she was actually, working for them, and that's very much the situation that Martha's dealing with. That's very much the situation that Paige is dealing with. This really is the perfect title for the episode, because they all feel like this old woman. I mean, in many ways, Paige feels that way, Martha felt that way. All the characters we've seen that have ever worked with Phillip and Elizabeth and didn't know they were working with them, they feel this way totally, because they're in complete denial. They thought it was just the mafia, and Stan and Adderhold, their new boss, decided to have the woman deliver the recording to the KGB so that they can bust them, and they want to condemn them at this point. They're not thinking of just, oh, we're just going to capture them. No, they're going to probably condemn them. They're probably going to send them to jail, and they're probably going to get the electric chair. That's probably what they're going to do. I mean, they have done so many things that just does, especially with them finding out about Betty's death and what happened to her, Betsy, whatever her name is, the woman that Elizabeth had to kill, the old woman, them finding out about that last week really has changed how they feel about the KGB overall, and especially because they know that they might have been capable of killing Gad. That also could happen. So basically, they're working with this woman. We don't know what's going to happen there. I'm very worried about what's going to happen, but it's so intriguing as well. They're finally getting this information. You feel happy for them, but at the same time, you don't want them to get this information because you want things to go well for the KGB, obviously. And that's something I love about the show, is how much you care about all these characters. So I really did like that, and I thought that was really well done. Oleg then calls his mother, and we get this really nice scene. He calls his mother to check in on her, and she's very emotional. She's still very affected by his brother's death, Yevgeny, and she wants to know when Oleg is coming, because we know that Oleg obviously went to his brother's death, back in, I believe it was like episode 5 or something like that. He went to his brother's death in that one episode, and she says that, she still thinks that he's Yevgeny. It's a really, I think, realistic portrayal of grief, and how sometimes you are in this denial that the person's alive, but they're not alive. I mean, I've never really faced that, because I've never lost someone that close to me, but I think it was a very realistic portrayal there. She wants to know when Oleg is coming home, and we don't know if he is. I mean, Oleg, like I said, really is his hands tied here. On one hand, you have Tatiana, who wants him to go to Nairobi, then you have his mother, who wants him to come home, and then you have Stan, who he knows he's working with, and he doesn't really know what to do here, and I like that Oleg has kind of got his hands tied a little bit, so I think that's really interesting. Definitely, I really enjoyed that. So Paige then takes a day off from school, because obviously, how do you go to school the next day? I don't see that working out. I mean, after you have all this information, no, you possibly could not concentrate. And I've said it before that Paige feels like an outsider in school. She really does. She doesn't feel like she belongs there, even mainly because the values that they are teaching her, she doesn't know if they're right or not. I mean, we remember that great scene in the first episode where they're all saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and she's standing outside the door because she doesn't know if this really applies to her, and if this is really what she lives by, and if she should stand with them. I think it's a very interesting situation. She and her mother try to watch TV together, and basically Paige is watching General Hospital, I believe. That was what she was watching. I looked it up. It was General Hospital, Luke and Laura's wedding, and I love the way that Elizabeth looked at this. She's not really into it, but I like that Paige said, you don't really need to analyze it, you just need to enjoy it. And yeah, in many ways, that is how it works. I mean, as much as I analyze TV, I also enjoy it, and I like that she's trying to tell Elizabeth there isn't really much else to it, just watch the screen, enjoy it, kind of something like that. And Henry finally returns from school with Stan's son, Matthew, and Tao, and things get really interesting between Paige and Matthew. I'm glad this episode touched so much upon them, because we had that great scene with them in that one episode where Paige went to visit Matthew. They had that really nice conversation, and this episode really expands upon that. I'm happy that it did. So Elizabeth watches from the kitchen, Paige and Matthew chat. Paige gets Stan's son to basically talk more about the FBI and what his job entails, and basically, to admit what's going on, because obviously she's going to try to get details through Matthew to see if he knows what Stan's doing, to see if, if Matthew knows, what Stan is saying, but you can tell that Matthew really doesn't know that much either, because he knows that Stan is always away, he knows that Stan hasn't really been there, and it's a really interesting scene, because Paige and Matthew both aren't really sure what their parents do. They know obviously what they do, but they don't know the extent of really what they do. Well, now Paige does, but Matthew Matthew obviously doesn't. So Paige gets, basically, Stan then slips out of work to have another secret meeting with Oleg, and even though he said last week, this is the last time we meet each other, I knew for a fact they would definitely meet up with each other again. I mean, it just did not seem final, and it's definitely not. We see Oleg hops into the car and starts rambling. He says that he's getting worried. Oleg says that there are things that the Russians are doing that are too dangerous, and he needs Stan's help to stop them before they wind up wiping out their own country. He's really worried that they're just going too far, and I like that Oleg really is not agreeing with what they're doing. You know, he feels that maybe they are going too far, maybe they are crossing a line, and Oleg then tips Stan off about the Russians' biological warfare. He abruptly hops back out of the car, and we realize that Oleg is basically doing the same exact thing that Elizabeth and Phillip are. Instead, he is basically going after them, though. He's not working with them, he's working against them, and he's working to get them off of it, because he's really worried that especially because of the day after. I think that's a big part of it. Remember how they all watched the day after? Now, I know there was a couple episodes ago, but I still feel that's a big part of this. I mean, I heard many weeks after that movie, people still feared that, that America would be bombed. And I feel like that's really Oleg's biggest fear, that his people, they're going to end up ruining the entire country, and he doesn't want them to have to do that. He knows what they're capable of, and he wants to stop them before they do something irrational. Now, obviously, this is, what Philip and Elizabeth do, but Oleg, you can tell, really does not support it anymore. I think that's really interesting. I think it's a really interesting direction for Oleg, and especially because it seems like he's always allied with, the KGB. Now it seems like he wants to turn against them, which I can understand. They are going a bit too far, especially with this disease. I mean, knowing what it can do to you, really, this can't end well. We'll have to see. So Gabriel meets up with William after Philip informs that he refused to participate in the biological warfare anymore, and Gabriel tells William if he does this one last thing, then he can go home to Russia and retire, find a wife, and settle down. And wow, Gabriel's actually being nice. Like, Gabriel's actually giving him a legit deal. Like, he's saying, look, you can leave, you can go to Russia, but I don't really know if Gabriel's sincere with that. I mean, we know what Gabriel wants goes. That's kind of how it is. But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty sweet deal. You get to go home to Russia, but if it liquefies your body, then you can't really do anything because you'll be dead. So I don't think Gabriel's really thinking about that, but clearly he wants William to be involved. He doesn't just want him to get out of this. He's not going to let him get out of it, and it's clear that William, you can tell, kind of does want to get out of it, while Gabriel's not going to let him. So he's saying that he'll let him find a wife, settle down, and everything. I really like the way that scene was done. So the question is William really going to take this deal? We don't know. I'm pretty sure he is, because we see, like I said in the promo, that he's in the hospital. So meanwhile, the FBI office, Stan and the team is in overdrive, trying to figure out who at the biological research company is leaking information, because they know that someone's leaking information. They just don't know who it is. They have a list of all the employees down to the accountants and janitors, and they're closing in on the Russians. Now, who's leaking him that information? Oleg. That's who's leaking the information. We already know who that is, and I like that. I like that there's no suspicion of who is leaking this information. I'm pretty sure the leak is Oleg. I mean, it seems that way. The way that Oleg knows what's going on, the way he just leaked all this information to Stan, that's who knows. And the fact that Stan knows all this stuff really is scary, because if he finds out who's behind this and what could happen here, I mean, this could really change Stan's relationship with the Jennings forever. Honestly, I really don't see things going well there, and I don't see KGB winning next week. I honestly don't see them winning. I think that Oleg, between Oleg and Stan and Adderhole, I think they're just too powerful to take down the KGB. I don't really know if this is actually going to go their way. I honestly don't know. So Matthew then gives Paige a ride home from school, and we get a scene that I feel like we all really kind of saw coming. I mean, I didn't really think that this was going to happen, but I'm really happy they took this in the direction that they did, because she heads over to Stan's house to hang out. And what I say, and you guys know what I've said about Matthew and Paige. Matthew gives Paige that chance to act like a teenager, because she never gets that chance. She always has to act like an adult, and you can tell that she really doesn't want to. She wants to be a normal kid, and this is her chance to be that normal kid. She gets to act, the way that she wants to. There's no one telling her, feeding information to her. This is the only time she can really, well, yeah, she's obviously trying to get information out of him, but this is really the only time she can act somewhat like a teenager, and I really did like that. We see her parents lecture about being careful with Matthew and not opening up, up to him too much, and basically they're talking and everything. He talks about, how Stan has been gone. Basically, oh, I forgot to read this. So Matthew says his dad hasn't been home for a few days now. He's been working. Paige rants that she has her own parent problems and she's tired of Phil and Elizabeth treating her like a 12-year-old girl, because really they do. They can see they're giggling, they're making small talk, and then just out of nowhere, Matthew plants a kiss on her, and it's more than just a kiss. They pretty much, they kiss, and you can tell she's very satisfied by it. You can kind of think that this is Paige's first kiss, because it's probably her first chance you can actually do something normal. She stutters, says she has to get home, runs out the door. You can tell that Paige is excited, but she's also really worried, because she knows that she can't really be in a relationship, and she knows what Phil and Elizabeth obviously said to her. So I really feel this is going to become a problem. I feel like she really does like Matthew, and to me, though, it's not coming across as just dumb teenage love. It comes across as Paige's only chance to be normal, and her life with Matthew is something I think she does want, but we don't really know if that's something that she's going to be able to have, which I think is very interesting. She heads home, she reports to her parents that Stan's been gone for 2 days, and her parents lecture her about being very careful with Matthew, that she needs to try not to reveal so much information to him, and not opening up to him too much, and Paige points out that her parents talk to Stan all the time, and honestly, again, Paige brings up some really good points here. The fact that Stan is like a friend of the family, they're saying, oh, that's different. It's really not. I mean, yeah, Stan obviously, he's best friends with Phillip. That's how it's always been. But Matthew and Paige, they're just friends. I mean, yeah, they had that one little kiss, but they are just friends. And Elizabeth lectures Paige. She doesn't want her to get too close to Matthew on their behalf. They don't need her spying on Matthew and Stan, and I like what Paige says, that they told her to spy on Pastor Tim and Alice when she really didn't want anything to do with them. And now, why can't she do the same with Matthew? And that's a really good question. I definitely do agree with what she's saying. Why can't they, why can't they just let her do this? Why can't she spy on Matthew in the same way? Because that's actually someone she does want to invest her time in learning about. That's someone she does want to talk to. And it's not that she didn't want to talk to Pastor Tim and Alice, it's that she just did not really trust them after what she was finding out, definitely. So now she really got herself involved in this big situation. It's not the end of the episode, though. We see at the FBI office, Stan and Adderholt just made a huge discovery. And this is huge, honestly, because what happens here, I don't know what this means, because this honestly is really scary. The fact that they found this out, they know that William's working for the Russians, he has a fake birth certificate, and they pull his file, and Stan and Adderholt rush out to find him, and by doing this, they are definitely going to find out some information about Phillip and Elizabeth. I mean, there is no way that Stan is not going to find out something about them. I really do think he might honestly find out next week. I could really see that happening. The fact that they have all this information, and the fact that I love that the FBI is actually ahead of them, because it always seemed like the FBI is losing and the KGB are more victorious. It's the other way around here. The FBI are winning in this case. They're finding out all this information. They're not stupid. They're finally finding out everything that's happening, and everything that the KGB has done, it's all adding up, and they're finally finding it out. I don't really know what's going to happen there. Really crazy stuff. But then the episode ends, it ends with Phil. He gets his phone call to meet up with William to get the dangerous biological warfare from him. And obviously Paige wanted to know what it is about, and I love Paige's reaction when she's just like, great, because now she knows that her parents are capable of having this biological warfare, the fact that they could destroy the entire world. I mean, really, to her, she's not really surprised. You can definitely tell, because she knows that, you can tell she really doesn't condone what they're doing. But again, she can't really control it, and that's basically how the episode ends, which I thought was a very satisfying ending. Really great stuff overall, and overall, just a really great way to end the episode. So overall, guys, once again, another amazing episode. I mean, this show just continues to impress me more and more every week. So many people are saying it's the best show on TV, and it's definitely one of those. I mean, this show is just fantastic. I loved pretty much everything about this episode. Like I said, it was basically setting things up for the finale, but it still was an amazing episode because of how personal it focused. I mean, it kept the focus very tightly on Paige, and really how she wants to get, involved. Now, she doesn't really want to get involved. And really, the big question is next week what is her choice really going to be? Because I know the description even says, is Paige really going to follow the family business? No, I don't think she's going to. I think she's going to choose her own path. I really don't see Paige enjoying this. I don't think she wants to do this, especially because she knows what she has to do. I don't really think she wants to do this. The question is, are Phil and Elizabeth really going to give her a choice? Are they going to force her into it? I mean, they can't really force her. I mean, she's, old enough to make her own decisions, and if she doesn't want to do it, then she's not going to do it. But it will change things with Phil and Elizabeth forever, and that's something I'm really looking forward to, is seeing what she really does decide to do. I'm hoping she does choose her own path, because you can really tell she does not want to be forced into this. She wants to make her own decisions. She wants wants that life with Matthew that she's not really getting to have. Not really a life, but just that is her chance for being a typical teenager, and she never really gets to be, and she kind of wants to be the typical teenager. So I do like the way that's going, but at the same time, she does care about her parents. But also, you can tell they're kind of isolated. You know, she's kind of isolating herself from them. She's trying to keep her distance a bit because now she knows what they're capable of. She does not want to turn into them. She does not want to get herself involved in what they're doing. She does not want to be like them, and you totally understand that. I mean, think of what they're doing. They have biological warfare. This could, you know, destroy the entire world. I mean, it's crazy what they can do, really, and especially because of her watching the Day After movie, everything she's heard. You can really tell she really does not support what they're doing. Even though they want her to, she really doesn't, and I think it's a very interesting direction. And then as far as Matthew goes, this is someone that clearly Paige does want to get information from, that she does want to talk to, and that she actually does want to invest her time in. It's just like Phillip and Martha or Elizabeth and, you know, Yun-hee. These are people that they're not supposed to get too close to, but already Paige has gotten really close to Matthew, and I don't see this friendship ending anytime soon. In fact, I think it's going to turn more into a romantic relationship than anything. I think that really is where we're headed, that she's going to end up possibly falling in love with Matthew. I mean, really, the possibilities are endless, but that really, I think that scene, we are definitely going to be talking about that scene 2 seasons from now. I could totally see us doing that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that. As far as Henry goes, I really see Henry eventually finding this out. I feel like Paige is going to be the one to tell him. Especially, let me tell you guys this. If Paige decides to not work for the KGB, she is most definitely going to tell Henry what's going on, because you can tell she really does not support what they're doing. She really does not look at them, you know, in the way that they want her to. You know, they're trying to make this as justified as possible, but she can't justify the situation at all. She just sees it as they kill people, and to her, that's wrong. And yeah, it is wrong. It's not right to just kill people. Obviously, they have a purpose for doing that, but she just sees it as wrong. I think it's a very interesting situation. I can't wait to see where that's going to go, and I'm really hoping that Henry does find out next week. I really do think that's going to happen, and that's going to be very interesting if he does. Now, as far as Stan goes, I mean, this really is insane. The fact they have all this information, and even the stuff they do about William, it looks like they are in front. They're going to find out, you know, who's the leaders of this, who's in charge of this stuff, and if he gives out some names, I mean, we don't really know what could happen. Now, of course, I do think that William's going to try to be maybe low-key about this, but William, we've seen before, he's not as good as Phillip and Elizabeth when it comes to how to handle a situation. Definitely Phillip and Elizabeth are more equipped for that sort of thing, while you can really tell that William is not really, you know, part of that. And I think it's very interesting the way that that's going. I can't wait to see the way that that all turns out, and especially now they know what's going on. Now they have this woman. There's really no telling what could happen next week. I mean, they could find out what's going on, Phillip and Elizabeth. Maybe they don't. Maybe something else happens. I mean, I honestly don't know, but I've never been this pumped for a finale. I mean, this is going to be the most game-changing finale since Season 4, since Season 2. I mean, Season 3, last year's was big. The final scene was big, but that really affected just this season. Whatever happens next week is going to affect the entire course of the rest of the show. I'm going to say that definitely. Whatever happens, definitely, there are going to be catastrophic results, and they're going to be big, and there's going to be a lot going on next week, and I can't wait to see how that turns out as well. And then as far as Oleg, what is Oleg really going to do? Is he going to ally with Stan? Is he going to go with Tatiana? Or is he going to go back home? We don't really know. There are really a lot of choices that Oleg could make, and I feel like right now he's kind of conflicted. He doesn't really know what he wants to do, and I do like seeing that. I think it's very interesting overall. And also, is Stan going to find out more about Gad's death? I could really see that happening. Obviously, that's a big part of something that he wants to know. He wants to know what's happened to Gad, things like that. I'm sure he is going to find out something about that. And then Martha as well. I did hear that Martha is going to come back into the story. Is she going to come back next week? We don't really know. We know a big part of this has been them investigating Martha. That's how this all started. So maybe that's part of this. I'm not really sure. What role is she playing in this? I don't really know. But overall, guys, amazing episode. Really just incredible stuff. Like I said, the show impresses me more and more every week. I absolutely love this episode. I can't tell you if it's the best episode of the season, though, because every episode of the season has been so consistent, and the season's been such a high, that I don't really know what the best episode was. I feel like last week's was, but this one was just as great, and this was mainly a dialogue-heavy episode, but there was a lot going on. All of it was really interesting. A lot of, you know, setting things up for the finale, but also setting things up for the final 2 seasons, and I can't wait to see how that all plays out next week. Things are definitely going to be crazy. But overall, guys, how much you guys saw this episode. Let me know what you think we're going to have in the finale next week. I honestly can't really make predictions right now. I'm just spitballing ideas out for you guys. But I will see you guys next week, which will be for Wayward Pines, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.